Everyone thinks Coraline is a dark fairy tale for children that stands out for its visuals. However, just beneath the film's colorful surface lies one of the most chilling theories in psychological science. What if I told you that the other mother isn't just a soul-sucking fantasy monster, but a ruthless behaviorist who systematically traps her victims? Today we are dissecting Neil Gaiman's uncanny universe through Ivan Pavlov's theory of classical conditioning. If you're ready, we're stepping through that small door. At the beginning of the story, we find Coraline extremely unhappy in the real world. Her parents cannot look up from their computer screens to spare time for her, and her father's cooking makes her nauseous. But this neglect isn't a random choice made to establish the film's gloomy atmosphere. In behavioral psychology and Pavlov's experiments, there is a fundamental rule. If you want to condition and manipulate an organism, that organism must first be hungry. You cannot motivate a sated dog whose needs are fully met with food. The Beldam, meaning the other mother, targets Coraline's emotional and physical hunger as a perfect manipulator. Before starting the experiment, the Beldam had to find out what Coraline was hungry for. This is exactly where that famous spy doll comes in. By watching the gaps and deficiencies in Coraline's life through the doll's eyes, the Beldam designed the fake world she would offer with millimetric precision. Coraline was now completely ready to be manipulated. How does this conditioning work? Ivan Pavlov's theory from the 1890s tells us this. If you give meat to a hungry dog, it salivates. This is an innate biological reflex. If you consistently ring a bell before giving the meat, after a while, the dog learns and starts salivating at the mere sound of the bell. When Coraline steps through the hidden door into the other world, the other mother greets her with wonderful baking smells, perfectly set tables, and a bombardment of warm attention. In psychological literature, this is known as lowering defenses through digestion. As Coraline's stomach fills with magnificent food, the danger alarms in her brain instantly fall silent. Over time, Coraline begins to pair this feeling of satiety and security with the uncanny button-eyed entity standing before her. Just as Pavlov's dog was conditioned to the bell, Coraline is conditioned to the frightening figure of the other mother. If you think all of this is an overinterpreted coincidence, let's look closely at the film's most cleverly constructed scene. Coraline's first dinner in the other world. During that massive feast, there is a very strange detail. The other mother's plate is completely empty, and she never eats any human food throughout the film. Why? Because the person at that table is not a compassionate mother, but a cold-blooded scientist observing her clinical trial from the outside. Those dishes aren't for her, they are merely reinforcers designed to trap the subject. Moreover, in this scene, the other father does not start eating of his own free will. At that enormous table, the other father begins eating only when the other mother rings that small dinner bell in her hand. In that universe, the other father has no consciousness or autonomy. He is literally nothing more than one of Pavlov's dogs controlled by a bell. And by ringing that bell, the other mother whispers to us who really holds control of the experiment. And where are the previous victims of this laboratory? In the same dining scene, if you look carefully at the wall in the background, you see the framed silhouettes of the 3 ghost children who were previously trapped and had their souls stolen. That room is not a warm family table, it is an experimental chamber where the Beldam swallowed her previous subjects and displayed her trophies. Manipulators, of course, do not only provide rewards. When Coraline begins to question the truth and object, that colorful world instantly turns into a dark prison. Even the lyrics of the cheerful song the other father plays on the piano whisper the approaching danger by actually saying Coraline is a doll. And of course, the ultimate goal of the experiment: button eyes. Eyes are not just the window to the soul, but where we perceive reality. Sewing buttons over the eyes means the victim voluntarily abandons the ability to see objective reality and submits only to the manipulator's fake world. However, there is an uncontrolled variable in the Beldam's laboratory that she did not account for. The cat. If you noticed, the cat is the only living thing in the other world without button eyes, not created by the Beldam and not following her rules. In behavioral sciences, this is called an extraneous variable. By reminding Coraline that this world is fake, The cat sabotages the flawless conditioning process the Beldam built. The biggest reason for the experiment's failure is the subject, Coraline, making contact with this external reality. However, in Pavlov's theory, there is another phase called extinction. If you ring the bell but start withholding the reward, the dog's learned response weakens over time and disappears. When Coraline realizes that there is no real love behind the toys, food and attention behind that door, and that they are all a cold-blooded trap set to suck out her soul, the system crashes. The conditioning in Coraline's mind is broken. At the turning point of the film, when Coraline tries to escape, she reaches the borders of the world and sees that the surroundings consist only of a white, empty void. What she thought was a magnificent parallel universe is nothing more than a small synthetic experimental room built to manipulate Coraline. The moment the subject gains awareness, the laboratory has collapsed. Coraline does not just present childhood fears to the viewer. It shows how narcissistic and toxic relationships work in real life. It is the best cinematic proof of how an abuser can use love bombing to lock a person in a cage with their own consent. Just like in real life, you are first invited through that door, conditioned with your favorite things, and finally forced to wear your own button eyes. Fortunately, Coraline managed to survive this deadly experiment.